podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em come, let 'em all come down to the den.
Hello dear listeners, welcome to another edition of Achtung Millwall. My name is Nick Hart and you're tuning in for one of our retrospective editions looking back ahead of Saturday's away fixture at the Racecourse Ground in Wrexham. So we're going to be looking back to a fixture from the past, Wrexham versus Millwall, I should say. It's the other way around, isn't it? But before we get into all of that, dear listeners, I thought it might be quite nice to have a quick review of some of the most recent comments made on our YouTube and Spotify accounts. First up, big shout out to Sean Coleman. Thank you for this one, Sean. This is a good one. This is in relation to our retrospective we did about Sheffield United. He's talking about the fire at the Den, the cigarette that caught fire on our main stand amidst the Second World War. Hitler missed it, but somebody's fag butt caught some rubbish piled up underneath the newly built main stand, built for potentially First Division football. That never came to pass in 1943. All burned down. Sean says here a cigarette also caused the Bradford City fire, the infamous fire. That was in the 1980s, around about the same time as the Hillsborough disaster. And Heysel, the Liverpool fans rioting in Belgium. And as Sean says, a cigarette butt caught under rubbish underneath. It used to be a thing. I never used to clear rubbish under things. I remember as a kid seeing a lot of rubbish piled up and you thought nothing of it. It caused the King's Cross fire, the escalator fire. And as Sean says here rightly, the Bradford City fire was the same kind of cause. By the way, their chairman says, Sean, Stafford Higginbotham, there's a good northern name, Stafford Higginbotham. You had a history of big insurance claims for fire. I didn't know that, Sean. There's a good YouTube video, apparently, Sean says. Players remembered him dressed in the club gear, joining him for the warm-up when they were playing keep up the ball, keepy uppy. They kept chipping the ball up to him, trying to tempt him into a header that would knock his wig off. His syrup of figs, dear listeners. He sounds like a old school football character. You don't get that in this modern era of transatlantic and international names, do you? You don't get blokes wearing wigs so much. Maybe that's one of the great losses of football. No one wears a wig anymore. We've got some more here from a Sheffield United reaction. This is the 1-1 draw, of course. Flacky32 says Bradshaw played up front. Tom Bradshaw, who I did see, actually, listeners, join Barnsley from Oxford, wasn't getting game time. Oxford's gone back to Barnsley, where I think he came to us from Barnsley, didn't he? Langstaff plays in behind, so not a like-for-like comparison. We were basically saying that Langstaff hasn't panned out as we would have expected. I hope we keep him, says Flacky. Well, we did keep him, Flacky. Coburn has missed better chances than Langstaff, Flacky saying. Yeah. I mean, strikers miss chances, don't they? Unfortunately, the league table will be judged on strikers that take their chances, and we didn't sign a striker in the transfer window. So clearly, Alex Neil thinks that Ivanovic, Coburn, and Macaulay have it in them to score the chances that we hope, the ones that we have signed, Tom Watson, Barry Bannon, etc. Well, not so much the goalkeeper, but they will create for us. So that's the gamble. That's what he's paid to take. We were in for Bailey Cardamateri, I read. Not a player I know much about, listeners, so I can't sit here and give you any kind of in-depth on him. Didn't get him. So we're going to have to roll with what we've got. But big thank you to Flacky for that reaction. Rob Woodford said he had to go and find the clip. That was the wanker sign that I referred to. I did find it and post it on X, Rob. It's brilliant. It is. Just after we equalise, the finger points up on camera and makes a big wanker sign afterwards at the Sheffield United. And it's a very Millwall moment, listeners. I'm not sure it fits in with the Premier League's take on how the sport should be portrayed, but hey, I'm not sure who's less prepared for the Premier League, Millwall Football Club or the Premier League itself. It's going to be quite an interesting thing if or when it ever does does come to pass. Wall Lion is naming his preferred 11 for Wrexham, the Wrexham game on Saturday. He wants Patterson in goal, so we're going to drop Crocombe for Wall Lion. Then we've got Kramer, Taylor, Coops and Sturge across the back line. Billy, Negley and Bannon in a kind of a 3 in midfield. And then up front, Femi, Aziz, Mihailo and Tommy Watson. The subs, Crocombe, Danny Mack, who didn't go, listeners. He stayed, didn't he, Danny? Alfie Doughty on the bench for Wall Lion. Delboy, Sacco, Mazusaku, Kundal, Ballo and Coburn on the bench there. That's an interesting choice of starting 11 there, Wall Lion. It's going to be interesting to see how Bannon fits into this. He must be a starter, I would think, or a major player in the games going forwards, but it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. And one last one before I move on to the Spotify ones, which is a deadline day show we did with Merv. This is from, can't see, Anonymous, A-N-Anonymous. Wonder if the Preston midfielder Merv mentions was Dixon Ituhu. There's a name from the past, Anonymous. Dixon Ituhu. Mark McGee said in an interview that we tried to sign Michael Tong and Phil Jagielka from Sheffield United about the same time. I didn't know that at all there. I know your name's not anonymous, I just can't find it on YouTube. But thank you for all those comments. They are always interesting to receive. Thanks to everyone for the voice notes as well. I mean, that's really grown into something, and I really enjoy those voice note shows. I've got a few more comments though from the Spotify feed. This is one from Makud. He says, I'm starting a campaign to put Tristan Kramer up front. Wouldn't be the first defender to turn into a striker. Dion Dublin being another example. Play 4-4-2, says Makud. That's an interesting choice. Tristan actually strikes me as the kind of player that can play anywhere, Makud. Although it does have a slight smack of the desperation about it when we've got, paid for expensive strikers up front. I mean, Ivanovic cost us a couple of million, didn't he? And Coburn is in amongst the club record fees if he's not the record signing. So it would be a perverse move to field your defender up front over and above those. But I suppose it's an option for late in a game if we're chasing a goal. Ian Tobin, always a regular correspondent. Shout out to Ian. He says at 1-0, this was against Charlton, at 1-0, cynical me kept thinking they would equalise, but we were so different under Alex Neil. He agrees with our comments on Langstaff, how we don't finish, but I don't think I'm saying anything that hasn't been discussed to death there. And he thought Billy was excellent against Charlton. He can turn when facing his own goal and looks to get the ball forwards. It's going to be an interesting season to go, listeners. 16 games to go between us and either promotion or the potential for the big time via the playoffs. It's going to be quite something. There we are. Big thank you to all those comments. Keep them coming. Always good to read. And then make quite a nice little introduction to our retrospective notes for Wrexham versus Millwall playing on Saturday. So this game I've plucked out of the records from 1960. And the reason my eye fell upon it is Wrexham 0, Millwall 1, dated 22nd of October 1960, day before I was born, dear listeners. That's why it struck me. Obviously, the other famous game was the draw that we got there in 2000, which was 2001, promotion from the League Division third tier, League 2, I think it was still called then. But I'm going to pass over that one for this one that's got more sentimental value, in the sense that I was about to appear in the world many, many miles away from Wrexham in Guy's Hospital the day after Millwall pulled off a 1-0 win, 22nd of October 1960. This is a game played in the old League Division 4, the 4th Division, as was. Very brief paragraph report here from the Sunday People. This is dated the 23rd of October 1960. Huzzah! Nick is in the world by the time this report is published. Not that I would have cared an awful lot, if I'm going to be really upfront and honest with you listeners, being only a few hours old. Headline is Millwall defence is solid, Wrexham 0, Millwall 1. Stop saying Millwall's defence is feeble, it says. Wrexham's eager youngsters, 9 goals in their 3 previous games, couldn't find a weak spot in this clever Millwall barrier. Alan Anderson, too canny to be outwitted, was in complete command at centre-half. The halfbacks Dennis Jackson and Paddy Brady disheartened the Wrexham wingers. But those Millwall forwards, ! They floundered until Burridge, that's Peter Burridge, headed in for a 1-0 win. That's the report, listeners. So a good defensive performance at Wrexham against a young Wrexham side by the sounds of it. The starting 11 for the Lions. Some names here that are not often spoken, I think, in Mill circles. So, as ever with these shows, we try and take a chance to mention some of those names, the lesser lights. We've got Bill Walters in goal, Dennis Jackson, Pat Brady, Bob Bumpstead, with a P, Bumpstead, Des Anderson. Jeff, I think that's who they meant in Alan Anderson's. Des Anderson listed in the A to Z book. Jeff Howells, Joe Broadfoot, Dave Jones, Alf Ackerman, Peter Burridge and Wally HINSHELWOOD. That was played in front of 9,174 under the management of J.R. Smith, one of our leading players of all time, the last England international for the Lions, although he was managing, obviously, late 1950s, 59 to 61. Just a short 18-month tenure for J.R. Smith, not hugely successful in the 4th Division. So 1960-61, we would finish 6th in Division 4, and it was a season of consolidation, I suppose you'd call it, in the bottom tier. Top scorer for the season would be a remarkable 38 goals for Peter Burridge. Wow, I mean, that's Teddy Sheringham level in the early 90s, followed by a very respectable in any other season, 24 goals for David Jones. I mean, that would normally be remarkable in itself, let alone 38 for Peter Burridge. So 2 high-scoring forwards, not much else elsewhere. We've got 13 goals, which is not a bad return, I'm saying, not dismissing Joe Broadfoot's return of 13 goals, but otherwise, Alf Ackerman, 10 goals. Otherwise, it's all in single digits through the squad. So, as I say, we will finish in 6th spot. Champion team in the 4th Division that season was Peterborough. Promoted Crystal Palace, Peterborough as champions, Northampton, Bradford Park Avenue. There's a name from the past. Bradford Park Avenue, no longer in existence. Seeking re-election, which was normally a formality. You had to apply to be re-elected to the league if you finished in the bottom 4. There were Chester, Hartlepool, Barrow and Mansfield. So, yeah, as I say, some interesting names in that starting 11. I've picked out Dave Bumpstead, number 1, just random choices, ones that strike me because, as I've said, we like to cover some of the lesser lights in Mill history if we can do. So Dave Bumpstead was a midfielder, played with us 1957 to 62, 87 games for the Lions, 8 goals scored, born in Wennington, which I think that's in Kent, is it Wennington? Died in Kent, he was born in 1935, died in 2017, played as an amateur for Spurs, a career taking in non-league RAF in national service, Ashford Town, Hitchin, Uxbridge, Tooting, Millwall, Bristol, Brentwood, and managing at Chelmsford. The little biography that Neil's got in his book, The A to Z, Mill A to Z, is by Neil Fissler. So it says, England amateur international Dave Bumpstead began with Tooting and Mitcham in 1956, where he represented London, Surrey and the Isthmian League. He scored on his debut against Gillingham on St Patrick's Day 1958. Was that March 17th? 10 games into the Lions' 62 promotion campaign saw him surprisingly sold to Bristol Rovers. He later managed Wingate, Brentwood and Chelmsford, leading them to a Southern League title. He was a clerk at Ford's, Dagenham and the Port of London Authority. Also, he ran an off licence in his time, he owned pubs, and he had property interests. His brother Bob Bumpstead, also had a spell on Mill's books as an amateur. So that's an interesting career. There's a nice picture of Bob wearing the old royal blue, white V-neck, plunging V-neck shirt, which I love. I've got that one from Toffs. Bought it a few years ago. If I ever do wear a shirt, which I don't much, I might reserve it for the playoff final if we make it. Same kind of V royal blue shirt. Onwards, Alf Ackerman, a name, again, that certainly I've seen his name around. I don't think we've ever mentioned Alf Ackerman on these shows. If we have doubled up on any listeners and you pick up on that, do forgive me. I don't keep track. I just do what occurs to me in the moment. There we are. That's how we roll. So Alfred Arthur Eric Ackerman, Ackerman, born in South Africa, Daspoort, name place Daspoort, 1929. He was a centre forward. Scored 81 games and 35 goals across 1958 to 61. He passed away in, I think there's another South African town, Dunatar, in 1988. His career took in Pretoria Municipals, came to Scotland, Clyde, then Hull City, Norwich, Derby, Carlisle, Millwall in 1959. Then he left us for non-league Dartford, Gravesend and Northfleet until 1975. He was manager then. It was known, South African ACK. He was known as ACK, anti-aircraft fire, ACK. He won a third division title North with Derby County in 1956 before joining Millwall 3 years later after Lions boss Jimmy Seed made 2 unsuccessful bids for his services. He scored 7 goals in his first 14 games and he was the leading scorer in 1960 with 18 goals. But he was released in July 61. Alf then became player manager of Dartford for 5 years before managing Gravesend and Northfleet for a further 6. He ran, after running a newsagent and a tobacconist in Kent, he returned to his native South Africa where he passed away aged 59 in 1988. Alf Ackerman, interesting career, colourful career. And finally, Jeff Howells. Again, these are names, especially Jeff. I think Alf Ackerman, is probably more mentioned, but I don't think I've mentioned ever Jeff Howells. He was a left half midfielder in modern money, 1958 to 1961. Played in this game at Wrexham, the 1-0 win we've mentioned. 61 games for Jeff Howells, 3 goals across those 60. I'm born in Shoreham in 1940. Still alive at the time of printing of the book. I'm hoping that's still so. But born in 1940, that would make him, 86, so you'd be knocking on. But let's hope Jeff's still out there. Career took in Fulham, Millwall, Dartford and Gravesend and Northfleet. Born in Sussex, started as an amateur with Fulham before Mill captured him as a promising 17-year-old. And he scored a second-half hat-trick in a pre-season trial match. A rock-like study figure with a vicious left-foot shot. His career looked set, especially after the Lions' unbeaten start to the 1959-60 season. But after Alan Anderson's emergence under Ron Gray, Jeff slowly faded from the scene and he moved into the non-league ranks with Dartford. He later ran a maintenance firm for police housing in Shoreham before retirement in June 2005. Big shout out to Jeff Howells there. There we are, dear listeners. As I say, this would be a season we'd finish in 6th spot in the 4th division. To greater glory in seasons to follow, but not under J.R. Smith. That would be under Ron Gray, who would take over from J.R. Smith mid-season this particular year. So there we are, dear listeners. Now, then, one of the things we do like to do, if we can do on these shows, is have a quick look at the front page of the Sunday Express in this particular case. We've already had the match report, the Millwall match report from the back pages, but I thought I'd have a quick look at the front page. The Sunday Express was a huge newspaper back in these times, 1950s, and probably its heyday. Had the famous Crusading Night headline on the front page, founded by Lord Beaverbrook across the banner. Still going, but I think it's a bit of a shadow of itself, like all newspapers now, but it was a major broadsheet level paper. So the page I'm looking at would have been, a broadsheet rather than a tabloid. Bold headline here, Pensions Cabinet Acts. Is there an extra 12 shillings and sixpence to come for married couples? Good news for the old people, it says. And an extra 7 and 6 for single pensioners. Big money. Stories, little lesser stories here. Richard Nixon, Dick Nixon, the presidential candidate, says that John F. Kennedy's too impulsive, he says. Vice President Nixon says that the senator, as he was then, John Kennedy, is too impulsive for the big job that they're both chasing after. He would, of course, win that and be, famously assassinated a few years later. But this is 1960. In Tehran, just to bring us up to date, Iran's in the news these days, but in Tehran, the Shah of Persia, as it was still known then, and his 22-year-old queen, a beauty in her day, Queen Farah. She went out for a drive in the mountains. This qualifies as news, apparently. She went for a drive in the Iranian mountains. His boy drowned in Australia. English boy emigrated to Australia, drowned in Sydney. And finally, as it is the Sunday papers, I was a Labour MP being sued for not paying his rates. Rates were like a council tax. For younger listeners, this is Tom Swain, 48-year-old Labour MP for North East Derbyshire, as in arrears with his rates, hasn't paid his council tax, to put it in modern terms. He reckons it's an oversight. Oh yeah, Tom. Oh yeah. Final story from this front page on this particular week of my birthday, 23rd of October 1960. A man weds his stepmother-in-law. This is a great story. This is a typical Sunday paper story of the old days. I'm very bitter, says his first wife. 57-year-old Cyril Johnston Scott, the wealthy managing director of Smith's Potato Crisps. Okay, Smith's Crisps. He secretly married his stepmother-in-law. How's this work? His first wife, Laura, was the daughter of Mr. Frank Smith, as in Smith's Crisps, the man who founded the firm. His second wife is Mr. Smith's widow. She is 47. The wedding was at Caxton Hall. Only a few close friends were present. No photographs were taken. It was at his special request, he says. So his first wife was the daughter of Mr. Smith. He's kicked her into touch and married Mr. Smith's wife, who is clearly a younger woman, to Mr. Smith, old Mr. Smith, and he's married her. So he's married his mother-in-law, his stepmother-in-law. There's a picture of the happy-ish couple on the front page, which I'll have to stick out on the show notes. Mr. Cyril Scott and his wife. Oh, it's his wife Ida, at a recent staff reception. And he's looking away from the camera. He don't look happy. Don't look happy. So there we are. A crisp-related scandal for you, dear listeners. Don't say we don't give you everything on this show. That's the Daily Express, dated Sunday, the 23rd of October, 1960s. 65, nearly 66 years ago. We'll be back at the weekend after that Wrexham fixture. Until then, from me, Nick Hart, it's Arrivederci Millwall. Bye for now.
Come rain or shine, our families will bring.
Who do you want to watch?